You know, we often think the solution to our broken food system is going to come from some high-tech lab, but what if the answer is literally right under our feet? Today we're diving into this really fascinating idea called spiritual farming. And just so we're clear, the source material isn't talking about religion here. Spiritual, in this sense, means being in total harmony with the living spirit of nature. It's a plan that's not just about how we grow food, it's about how we can reshape our entire society.
Okay, but before we get to the solution, we've got to face the problem head-on. Take a look at this number. $750 billion. That's how much food is wasted or spoiled around the world every single year. I mean, that's just a mind-boggling amount of waste, especially when you think about the fact that hundreds of millions of people are going hungry every day. So yeah, our system is clearly broken. And the source material we're digging into today asks this really powerful question. What if the answer isn't trying to fight the system we have? What if we just grew a new one from the ground up? It's a big idea, right? That maybe the only real change comes from building a whole new alternative, one that's free from all the exploitation.
All right, so to really grasp the solution, we first have to understand the problem as the source sees it. Let's dive into what it calls the exploitative system.
According to the source, this whole thing kicks off at the political level. Think about it. Elections cost a ton of money, right? So political parties often rely on funding from big corporations. And those corporations? Well, they expect favorable policies in return. Policies that help their massive industrial businesses. It creates this vicious cycle that, the source argues, leads straight to environmental damage.
And that environmental cost? It is absolutely huge. Get this number, 5,333 million tons. That's over 5.3 times billion tons of fertile topsoil that India is said to lose every single year. The source draws a direct line from this loss to industrial farming practices, things like deep plowing with tractors that just destroy the living ecosystem in the soil, all for the sake of short-term profits.
So this is where we see the big contrast. On one side, you've got industrial farming. It's all about expensive chemicals, heavy machinery, and it just wears out the soil. But on the other side, the source puts forward this idea of spiritual farming. And the crazy thing is, it's a zero-budget approach that works with nature to actually build fertility just by using what's already there.
Okay, so what is the alternative? Well, the source suggests we should look at what it calls nature's operating system. The idea here is simple but profound. We don't need to invent anything new. Nature has already perfected the system. We just have to pay attention and learn how to work with it.
I absolutely love this quote. It says local earthworms are the tractors of nature. Forget those diesel tractors that just scratch the surface and compact the soil. The source points to nature's own crew, earthworms, plant roots, all those microorganisms as the real farmers. They're out there plowing deep, working 24/7, and they don't ask for a salary. And this brings us to a really cool concept called wapasa. It turns out, according to the source, that plant roots don't drink liquid water like we do. They actually breathe in water vapor. So when we overwater our fields, we're basically flooding the soil, pushing out all the air, and suffocating the roots. Wapasa is that sweet spot, that perfect balance of 50% air and 50% water vapor where plants can really thrive.
And so much of that thriving life is totally invisible to us. Let's meet the captain of the food supplier team, as the source calls it, the mycorrhiza fungus. This stuff is incredible. It creates this massive underground network that partners up with plant roots, acting like a delivery service to bring in nutrients and water that the plant couldn't get on its own. It's a perfect partnership.
All right, so that's the science behind it. That's the theory. But how do you actually do it? Well, it all boils down to one incredibly important technique, what the source calls the miracle of mulch.
And the process is surprisingly simple. Seriously, it's just 3 steps. Step 1, you sow your seeds. Step 2, for the first month or so, you just do a little weeding to give the crop a good head start. And then, step 3, and this is the key, you cover all the bare soil between the plants with a nice thick blanket of biomass, like straw.
And this is where the magic happens, because this one simple act solves so many problems at once. That mulch layer protects the soil from washing away, it soaks up rainwater like a sponge, it keeps weeds from growing, and it creates the perfect cozy home for all those earthworms and microorganisms we were just talking about. It's a total game changer.
Now you might be thinking, can I just use anything for mulch? Well, it's a little more scientific than that. The source gives us this table showing the carbon to nitrogen ratio for different materials. This ratio, the CTN ratio, is super important because it determines how well the material breaks down to create humus. And humus is that rich, dark, organic stuff in soil that's basically the foundation of all fertility. But the big question is, does this stuff actually work in the real world? Well, take a look at this chart. It's from a study mentioned in the text, and it shows the results for sugarcane. As they increased the amount of mulch they used, the yield went up, and up, and up. You can see it right there. More mulch led to a bigger harvest. The proof is right in the numbers.
Okay, and this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, this might be the most ambitious part of the whole idea, because this isn't just about farming anymore. This is about taking these same principles and using them to build a completely new kind of society. So here's the core philosophy again, and it's really important. The idea isn't to go out and fight the current system head-on. No, the strategy is to make it irrelevant by building something better right alongside it. A parallel system that's more resilient, self-sufficient, and just works for people.
The political endgame for this vision has a name, Gram Swaraja, which basically means village self-rule. Imagine this. In this model, the local village assembly, the Gram Sabha, is the ultimate authority. They own and make all the decisions about their local resources, the land, the water, the forests. It's about taking power from far-off governments and bringing it right back home.
I mean, this is a pretty radical idea of decentralization. The village manages its own projects, it has its own local judiciary, and, this is huge, it creates an economy where money flows into the village from the cities, not the other way around. It completely flips the script on how wealth and resources are supposed to move.
And at the end of the day, the ultimate vision is simple. A strong nation isn't built from the top down, it's built from the ground up. If you can empower all these individual villages to be strong, prosperous, and self-reliant, well then the entire nation becomes stronger and more resilient as a result.
Which kind of brings us full circle and leaves us with this one last big question. The source makes a direct link between the health of our soil and the health of our society. It suggests that maybe the most radical political act isn't what we think it is. Maybe it's just planting a seed. So what do you think? Can a revolution truly begin in a garden?